All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, October 12th, 9:31 a.m. And I'm calling to order today's meeting of the City of Hudson Industrial Development Agency. Mrs. Drew, would you please take a roll call of attendance?
Right. You're opening. Okay.
Oh, we can't hear you, Lise.
Nope.
No? Shout out loud, that's all.
Heather Campbell. Jamal Johnson.
Present.
Lisa Joyner.
Present.
Joe Lucas. Thomas Moranti.
Here.
Wallace.
Present.
Ryan Wallace.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. First order of business is I need a motion in a second, please, to accept the minutes and place them on file from the September 7th meeting, the September 21st public hearing, and the special meeting on the 21st of September as well.
I'll make.
Thank you, Mr. Moranti. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Carries. Without Heather here, I'm going to skip over the Finance Committee report for a moment. I mean, technically, Chris, we would need her so that we have all three members of the Finance Committee here.
Well, I guess we have a two-person meeting. Is there anything we need to do to
Is he right here?
Here she is, actually. All right, why don't we'll come back to it. But instead, Mr. Tucker, what I can do is I'll turn it over to you for project updates, starting with 708, if you would.
Let me chip in.
708 State Street is the Depot District affordable housing project, not the low income tax credit project, which is at 75 North 7th. We have been advised by Galvin that intending to proceed with a closing on 708 State Street. My understanding is they have provided escrow that's requested to enable council to begin work, but she has not heard.
Oh, no. We're moving right along. Okay. We have, we drafted and submitted to them all the agency documents, and we have back from them a large portion of the company documents that we I just heard from Dan yesterday. Going over into this team, so we should get back from them shortly. So they're moving along.
Okay, and you're satisfied with the response and their
Yeah, we've got things to do, but
Yeah.
we're moving along towards.
and you know, it's, I think that they have advised us that they're waiting for the next round of New York State housing and community renewal applications for the low-income housing tax credit allocation. They were not successful in the previous round, but only two projects were approved in the capital region, and they were both what are called supportive housing projects, which get priority above affordable and low-income housing projects. We have on the list of projects for update Pocketbook Factory PDF LLC. My understanding is they're continuing to do work on the site. While they're at night sometimes, and there's a lot of construction type lighting on the insides. I'm looking forward to perhaps going over and seeing how they're doing.
Are we able to do a walkthrough to see it all?
I think the issue becomes if more than three of you went together, is it a public meeting?
You can do a walkthrough in touch.
Yeah.
Right.
If that's
Why don't we arrange that?
yeah, if that's something that we could do, and I mean, is it worth bringing any members of the press along, just like a Roger or somebody with a
Why don't I touch base with Sean?
Yeah.
And
see if they're over
coordinate
here.
that with you, Mr. Chairman, and then include the other board members, and if they want, I think it would be best to get the press because then it's clear that it's not a public.
Exactly.
SEC 7, we are moving towards the closing. There were two issues that had come up. I convinced their counsel this morning that they should trust the judgment of our counsel and my advice to them. They, as part of their incentive package from the IDA,
Linda, are you able to hear us okay, or do you want to bring the mic closer? We got to project more. Okay.
Do you want to steal that mic right there?
With respect to SEC 7, they had received three benefits from the IDA, as you'll recall: a mortgage recording tax exemption, a sales tax on construction material exemption, and a payment in lieu of tax. The mortgage tax exemption was based on their anticipation of getting a $4.5 million mortgage on a $7.5 million total project cost. They've decided to get a private mortgage or additional equity, and therefore, by not having a mortgage, they were not going to get title insurance. Because you would get the title insurance for the bank, for the mortgage, and then there would be an add-on to the IDA. So there's some question as to how to go about that. Chris and I have been back and forth with them, as well as the chairman. There's no way we're not going to require a mortgage or a title insurance on a project to protect the IDA's interest in the project. And we just have to work with a title company and the developer to identify what that risk is, what's an adequate dollar amount to cover that risk, and what that premium will be for the developer to pay to ensure that the IDA has adequate coverage. Is that a fair representation of where we are? Sure. Yeah. Yeah, they, at the same time, there was the question of our annual fee. I think I told them that at our last meeting, it was my understanding of the board that the annual fee would be based on what was in the application at the time that they made their application for the project. And if there was any subsequent change in policy by the IDA, we would advise them about that. Again, I reminded them that all in, it was approximately with the mortgage recording tax and sales tax exemption and the pilot savings, about a $850,000 benefit. They are paying a $75,000 IDA fee. They're paying council fees to the IDA council. And they are going to have to pay the title insurance. And basically, the assessment now is 2.95, so it'd be a $2,950 annual fee as long as the assessment wasn't changed. And over 10 years, that's about $25,000. So all in, there's even with these,
It's a drop in the hat in comparison.
they're still getting $700+ thousand in benefit, and that I told them that frankly, it would erode goodwill if they started nickel and diming.
And there's also just the precedent. I mean, we've required this of every other applicant that's been there. Why are we going to start now for one?
And I think, if you're a developer or business person, you're going to ask. Right. If the answer is no, you move forward and they have requested that CEC explore for them a grant similar to the grant that we worked with the city on for Return Brewery for equipment. And I said, with the composition of the IDA, being the two representatives of the city council and the mayor, I said, you're going to need their support and participation, and you don't want to look at any of this in the abstract.
Right.
You want to look at what you've received and what what it's less than 2% of the total benefit that they were saying because we have a break on the mortgage title insurance. And you understand why people ask. I mean, we all ask when we're buying something, but you need to look at the big.
Yeah, as far as that application goes, or for the grant, they just need to work through different channels. So if that's something they want to present to council or ask for a meeting with the mayor's office.
Yeah,
And
that's
we're
separate from
we're
the
open
idea.
to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And that was the advice provided to them, and so it's sort of in their ball.
It's in the, it's in the.
And I think, as you recall, one of the issues there is, that it may have to be equipment. The eligibility for the equipment may be after they're up and running for additional equipment,
Correct.
because there are these environmental rules that you can't, begin any work or do anything to order or commit to purchasing equipment before all of that is done. And they're on a time track that, it's going to make it difficult to get them a grant, in the short term. But, I think they're very happy, and, I never get upset when someone asks, can I have, pay less? But, yeah, sure, sometimes we've all been on that side of the coin too.
And, I'd like that answer to be yes more oftentimes than not, but.
So I'm happy with how it's going. It is a great project. Was fast tracked. It does create jobs. It does diversify the type of projects that the IDA is considering in terms of it being manufacturing or production, food production. And, so I think overall, I don't want, these types of questions, as legitimate as they may be, to erode any goodwill on the part of the agency or employees.
Great.
We did have an inquiry from Galvin with respect to the proposed hotel at Fourth and Warren. They would like to schedule a meeting with Chairman and go through what the new eligibility criteria entails with respect to a project of that type, see whether they will go
Proceed.
forward with the project.
Okay.
And I think, we'll have, as we go through the application of the new project eligibility criteria and the matrix, we'll have those questions from all developers. I did meet,
Really quickly, Mike, sorry, going back to SEC 7, what requires approval today, if anything on it?
Nothing.
Oh, okay, so it's just Ms.
it
Martin.
was only,
Okay.
It's just an update.
Okay. Well, no, there says it requires approval on.
yeah,
Okay,
I
just
think
wanted-
the question was, were they going to come in and ask for some accommodation?
Right.
And you would have had to approve that, but, I think they understand that would not be.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, that was the
Title
question.
insurance, but because they're not getting a mortgage, they're saying, well, the bank doesn't, the bank requires title.
Right, but,
But they should have gotten title insurance when they bought the property.
Right. and that's the thing, we're not putting the IDA at risk or even Chris at risk
So
for.
we're requiring that they get.
Right.
Correct,
Okay, so that's one of the.
correct.
And one of the things we looked at was, I did consult with a second title insurance company, just to be sure that what they were telling us was not, trust but verify.
And our attorney can do that too. right?
Well, we work together on it, yeah. We were on a timeline here and, Derringer is across the hall. So it's. What we do charge is this was your case. Like, what did you tell me? Title insurance is really all title insurance charges the same thing.
Right. right.
Scale.
Based on a schedule that is approved by the state for everybody, so we don't comparison shop, the comparison shopping quality, what is it?
And the right structure for a deal that does, they didn't get it when they bought it, and they're not gonna need the rank.
Those are the things that make it.
So, but, jumping back to Galvin, I told them that, we coordinated a meeting, with the chairman, and then, the full board to discuss that. I did meet, with representatives of Plus Development, the group that purchased the Elks Club. They brought a team of people here, an architect, engineer, and they were here for 2 or 3 days, last month. And, I did send them again all of the information. I encouraged them to come to our public hearing, with respect to the eligibility requirements, as I did with Galvin and other developers.
I'm happy to meet with, because this is a process, right? So in these early days, like whatever we need to do time wise, as long as it works with the schedule.
And then I think the best thing is if we can find a project that is, able to utilize both B and C.
Yep.
So that we can demonstrate to the public how the new model works.
Correct.
And,
Without shoehorning anybody in, but yes.
yeah, I mean, well, because there are a lot of open variables on how, to get the 15-year schedule.
Yep.
And, at the same time, I think we have to be sure that if you get D, which is the current uniform
Standard.
pilot policy, that you've got something.
Correct. Great.
So, I did have an inquiry to go tour the CAD site. Just to, again, with Swift campaign, I know he's been finishing up projects in Catskill. He wanted to brainstorm, but, I did send him information on a $30 million mixed-use development that's been proposed for Glens Falls.
Mhm.
And I did send him some information on a riverfront development,
The Beacon one.
no, one in the Midwest, but I think that when you look at that, and it's certainly a planning board issue, long before it's an IDA issue, is, how do you, what has to be built there to support a $3 million purchase of 3 acres of land? And it has to be a big project. It's a $30 million project, where you're never gonna amortize the investment in land at a rate that will, and to do that, you're gonna have multiple uses. Hypothetically, housing, retail, office, housing, yeah. So I think that the more we can be supportive in his thought process but it's, as you know, the IDA's position has been, and I believe we will continue, not to, approve any project until the planning board is
Correct.
completed its approval.
Correct.
So that we're not in a position of developer,
Bless them.
not this one in particular, but any developer saying, well, your IDA already approved this, or your city council already approved this, what's wrong with the planning or zoning board? So,
Sometimes they'll come say, well, that's all this on.
yeah.
Individual meeting can be
I had,
taken another way.
I had a real estate partner, you tell him something and he didn't respond, he thought that there was no objection, and then when you did it, I heard about it. So, I think we're gonna hear from more projects, I'm hoping they'll be more diverse than all hotels, but, and I do think that, I know the chairman and I have discussed the fact that at some point, and I believe probably at that point, to the extent there is additional hotels, I think a market study, is in order.
Yep.
Because if they're doing their own market study to justify the investment, that's one thing, but we need to demonstrate to ourselves and the public that, we're not resulting in creating an environment where you're going to have the full,
I always say the survey can always be scripted in a way to get the results that you want. So something neutral is going to be needed.
well, it's the same thing we've done when we've done need assessment for, whether you need financing to make a project, viable, and whether the, about financial analysis to determine the extent of the, benefit. And I guess the only, last thing, that I had was, I was very impressed with, Roger Gilson from the Times Union for acknowledging his mistake. I was not happy that after I pointed it out to him before he published it, that he, wrote the article that we were the most generous IDA in the universe.
In a way, you almost want to thank him for some free advertising.
Oh, yeah.
That kickstarts more people looking at us. But yeah,
Yeah.
mistake all the less.
But, and what he did was he took statewide data and which included projects. Yeah, he didn't look at only projects that were financed last year. He looked at projects where the upfront benefit of the sales tax had done in the past. But I told him I've never seen a reporter,
Own up.
own up to it, and if he was getting any grief from the judges I'd be happy to acknowledge that, but, it was very disheartening the day I saw that come out on Sunday.
I mean, inaccuracy in reporting is always something that is never good. So,
Well, but, someone said all press is good press unless it's, on page 2 or page 8, right?
All right, excellent.
The legal beat or the, oh, good.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you mention the project at Union State?
Not Union State, the old Elks Lodge one.
Or you think
The one on the,
McKen Street?
yes,
We understand, that's what, we call it 620 Union.
620 Union.
I know it has a legal name, Hudson Home or something.
Yeah.
They are still looking for an equity partner, but I know they're actively looking for one because we've had calls from several people who, have been in communication with them, asking, for copies of documents. of That nature. We did look at that, and they have approximately 2 years left on their approvals. Because of COVID, you may recall the IDA gave them a bigger window to use access to benefits. But we did put them on notice that that's, eroding month by month.
Yep.
And, but, it's still, and I do see, I think I saw this morning driving and that the church next door is for sale.
The blue one.
Yeah.
No, down a block. You're thinking the old Chips Captain's house on,
Okay.
right? So that's up one block, but well, next door, I guess, technically on the same block. But
That
yes,
same
that
block.
church is now.
Remember, he's building the proposal there, that the planning board approved for 620 Union was 25 room rehab in the existing building.
In the old wing, yeah.
And a 25 room expansion in that vacant lot between the church and the.
Yep.
But I did see where, the 7th Street Park Group is hosting a fundraiser on his front porch.
Hang on the porch, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, which is a good sign to me that, he's still engaged in the community and still, I mean, it was at least a sign that there's light. And, but I did have 2 out of town hotel, investment companies call. But again, we can only, provide them what's in the public information and refer them back to, Mr. Kessel. Kessler.
Perfect. All right, we're gonna go back up in the agenda here, now. So I need a motion in a second to suspend the meeting so we can go into the finance committee. All right, perfect. All right, so for Heather and Dominic and myself, I need a motion in a second then, for the minutes of the March 2nd, 2022 meeting to be accepted and placed on file. Thank you. That's all in favor. Aye. All right, the treasurer's report, which you all have in front of you. Are there any questions on what we have? Jessica, anything that you want to add to the elements? I mean, it's the standard elements and reporting that we have to do annually.
Yep.
Balance sheet looks great.
Thing that you'll need to review and discuss today is the financial plan for the upcoming years. That is due by the end of the month.
I think the only question that I had is, when we're looking at the percentage change, we're net income down 236. So, and that's due to the slow. I'm on, well, it says page 1. It's the second to last page of the finance.
The profit and loss
Yeah.
for the previous year
Yeah.
comparison.
Well, what we had done in the past is we had budgeted a $50,000 project fee.
Right.
Not knowing if we'd have any projects. And then, but not wanting to show the state that we had 0 and then have any effort to promote and get projects.
Actually, the reason why you're seeing such a dramatic change is because these are January through August numbers,
Not the full year.
not the full year.
Okay.
We have not paid out the pilot distribution in
Okay.
2022. So that 221,000.
Yeah.
Is artificially increased number because the pilot payment did not get paid out until later in the year.
Okay. So we're on track then,
We're going to be very close to
previous year.
previous year.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at, because the numbers are the same, it's just positive, negative at this point.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
I can look on it for
No,
yearly
that's
basis,
okay.
but okay, it's gonna be, we're losing basically like 20 grand.
Which hopefully we can fix with increase in projects and the fees then.
Right.
Okay, great.
Well, but we also have to add in the $200,000 fee, flood fee.
No,
Right, so that would.
When are we getting that?
but
Hey,
I, yeah,
but when they close, right, Chris? They pay.
Oh, word.
Oh, yeah, it's in the money, it's in the cash.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, so it's on the balance sheet. Yeah. And,
all right, so we do have that.
but we do anticipate getting a $75,000 fee on
SAC
SEC
7, right?
and a $150,000 fee on the first outlet.
So we're actually,
Yeah,
This year.
yeah, so we're actually in good standing.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Great.
All right.
No,
We have a lot more cash on hand.
Than we had previously, yeah.
Yeah, we
We
started,
used to have about 30,000.
yeah.
Well, max, yes.
Yeah.
Because you remember,
That's how we say
it goes back to when, you had about 10 or 12,000 in the account when we closed on the whip, on September, and for fee with you, and you got 40 grand. And then the plan was to use that at 10 grand a year to get to where we are now, and I think that, and if, so you'll have 150 and 175. You'll have unrestricted, they'll retain the earnings of 319 plus 225. You'll have over $500,000 if you guys close this year.
Yeah.
And then if 620 closes and the second Galvin project closes, you'll have $750,000 in the bank by then.
We're throwing a parade.
Yeah.
Well, not just the end, but that'll have, we also have a private payout.
But that pilot payout comes from monies that are paid by the developer.
You were just taking into account fees.
Yeah,
You were
yeah.
taking the transactional fee only.
You're talking net,
I'm just
net
thinking that
proceed.
as you look out, and it's too early to do it because it's not real, it's not, closing isn't a closing because it closes. But at some point, you'll have $500,000 to $750,000 in the bank, and you'll have, wanting to look at what legal activities can those funds be used for? And what, if any, legal activities that they're allowed to be used for, do you want to engage in?
Yeah.
And some ideas buy property and put infrastructure in, others workforce and education programs, but I'm very pleased how this is evolving, but it's evolving because of what you've all done over the last number of years to, provide a pipeline of certainty for developers. It's not, you're giving them the rules, and if they can, go through a process with rules. I mean, there are a couple towns in Columbia County that don't have zoning. I mean, where do you start? So, I think you're in really good shape.
All right, I need a motion in a second to accept the treasurer's report.
And I second.
Oh, you can't second. Yeah, we're still in the finance committee. Oh my God, thank you. All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, budget. I mean, budget looks great. And I know that a lot of it is factored into 23 based on the projects that we know that we have in front of us. Do we want to be more conservative or are we okay with it? Okay, Heather, yeah, I know.
Heather and I went through this and we didn't include 620.
Oh, all right,
Then
then never mind.
and
It is pretty conservative considering.
Without that, I was
and it
thinking.
trails
all of
off.
them, Yeah,
It shows we know.
Yeah.
And account the ones that you're pretty
It
confident.
trails off in the context of, we're assuming that, we have maybe one $5 million project in 24, 25.
right. It's modest growth, which is that's what I was happy to see from 24 on. So,
But it
I
also
have no
shows
other
you, we need to have
questions.
$50,000 or $60,000 a year in those outer years to break even.
But that's, I mean, we're on track for that though.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and as you saw, even this small SEC 7 project, which I consider a relatively small project, you know, that's a $7.5 million project, which is not a $5 million project or $6 million. But we tried to, you know, and at a certain point it will trail off. Although I keep getting interest in One Hudson Avenue,
really,
which the
So,
White Door company.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 16 acres.
It's insane.
Yeah.
That is just sitting down all of this time.
I did try to see if I could go
The
back
lights
to when
were
I
on
was
last
in
night.
Japan.
the stadium lights and then,
By the owner.
Yeah, I actually got through Texas and I just feel like a week from Japan.
so we don't have a.
Yeah, speak up.
We
Teresa,
don't have
go
a
for that.
concrete working capital that we maintain here. It fluctuates in the amount of hours.
Well, unfortunately, I mean,
In
from,
terms of income,
Income and what we give out and what we hold for, you know, every year. So then, you know, a working capital meaning that we come into the year holding on to what we're gonna need next year.
well, we have, but that's what the budget is, so it does make the assumption of where we're going
Is it
to.
221?
Yeah, so in 22, we're estimating that we're gonna close out the year with about $250,000 to the 250, 400.
Right.
Right? Against the expenditures in total, we're averaging about 50,000 that we have to pay out. That does include what we have to bring in through developers fees and bring out. So we're saying net proceed at the bottom is that we could stand to make about $200,400 this year. That all does carry over. That just goes into a bank. Think about, we put that into our savings account. We're estimating for 23 that after all is said and done between what we get and what we have to pay out is going to be $338,900. And so that will be aggregate added. So that's where by the end of 23, if we are being judicious and restrictive on our own spendings, we'll be sitting on about $500,000, which is where, to Mike's
and
point,
you have 319 in reserve now, and
correct. And that's, so
this
this is without looking at the aggregate of what's in the bank, so to speak, what our bank statement is.
But the,
Oh, go ahead.
That what Teresa just said, you know, one of the things we're gonna be talking about today, with Jessica is what are your annual fees? Because you have an
Correct.
obligation to continue to monitor these projects, new projects or no. So,
And if I may, this is where what's important, and when we were talking about this fee schedule in the last meeting, is this organization should get to a point where it is self-sustaining on the management fee. Every single project that we agree to should ensure that for the lifetime of when they're receiving the benefits, that the annual fee takes care of the administrative costs of it, so that we do not have to dip into our elements. Because what that means is that we keep that balance sheet growing, then we are in a position to actually self-fund or self-enact or help more within the development of what we know that we need, that we're not seeing from developers or applicants coming in.
So that's what we're working towards.
Correct.
We're not there yet.
Correct. And we're on a very healthy path to it.
yeah, and on the new project, matrix, there's going to be more compliance.
Well,
Correct.
that's exactly what, in other words, we're working towards exactly.
so that's.
And then
So I think too, to add is that you look at and you have, it's approximately $50,000 in operating expense every year, regardless of the number of projects you bring in. So to Ryan and Chris's point about being self-sustaining is you need to have projects to at least pay for that. But the more projects you have, the more, you know,
Workload is.
right, your expenses go up because of the monitoring that we have to do on an annual basis.
Think of it this
So-
way, 5 projects, and we just have a Jessica. Well, if we get 10 projects, we only have a Jessica, I could be paying her twice the amount of money, but she only has the finite amount of time and bandwidth to do it. So we need to be able to expand and scale to do the management elements of it.
Right, so it's important to keep in mind, you're about $50,000 every year regardless, so. I think that's where it becomes conservative when you look at the budget. And what we're looking at is very minimal number of projects to bring in to cover those costs.
The good part is it's not, the city is in a position where you're not only looking at projects on vacant land, you're looking at projects of rehabilitating existing buildings over time. So there's a inventory of potential projects that outlast a community that's only doing, de novo projects on open field. Because there's a limited number.
Except for the ones that are owned by Japanese holding companies that we can't locate, but.
Well, I think their problem is that they have $6 million on their books. My theory was right now that the yen to the dollar is 70 cents.
Right,
And so, you know,
now's the time.
there were some offers, when we had the fellow from Connecticut, right on the broker list. But, you know, I think that, you know, you basically went 10 years without doing any IDA projects, just
What is-
maintain the operation of the two housing.
What is, maybe this is a better question for Chris, what are the New York State regulations on? I mean, you can't do anything, I mean, as long as they're paying their taxes, right? Because I'm just trying to think, some of the NICOM presentations about like blight, right? Like if it's a ghosted property like that, where there's nothing happening, there's no security, there's no fence, the building's sitting there and rotting.
Are they paying their taxes?
That's, I think we need to look into that, right? Because like you can, yeah, you can seize a property like that.
I mean,
The
it's
land bank,
That you see exactly, you see where I'm going.
right a little.
Yeah, because
I think-
then that
Even if
puts,
they're paying their taxes.
no, that's the thing I'd have to look into. So the way that the Albany County Land Bank works is that they can find out if there are ghost properties that are sitting there and nobody's paying the taxes and it's just rotting and it's causing pain to the rest of the neighborhood, like that property is, right? And there's a demand and need for rehabilitation or the structure. New York State has laws and regulations via eminent domain where you can go in and actually seize the property and put it
and if
back in
it's
your
on the
hands.
tax roll, you just take it, but
Correct.
we looked at the land bank, several times.
Right.
And we had Adam come down and run.
Yeah.
You know, he's the president of the New York State Land Bank Association. The county decided not to go ahead with a land bank because the city does your own foreclosure.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's what I'm saying. If you don't pay taxes, you don't need a land bank.
No, but the land bank can then take the property and rehabilitate it. so
Correct.
The city
Oh,
can't.
but
It's a, yeah, it's
And you
a-
get money from the
the
tobacco
city has to
settlement,
take it and resell it.
and the state gives you money from the tobacco settlement.
City doesn't have to. They don't-
no, the city could actually develop it.
Okay, so you.
That's
don't
where
need
you
that.
come in with, all of a sudden, if the IDA has a significant amount of money and you think about sort of development and what you want to do to stir development and using that, when you have sort of a significant amount, it becomes sort of a tool for the community
Is
to
that
fund
subject to
certain things.
vacancy law? Is that also subject to?
Yes.
Would you like a presentation on land banks?
If you want to bring Adam down,
Yeah.
he's great. So I think, have you all met him before? or done a depth?
It would help us understand.
See, the county gave you a list of,
You know, Mike, it might actually be something to pull in planning, HCDPA, IDA together, just to do a public presentation
Mhm.
for the city.
well, and the public,
Yeah, exactly.
because I think that, you know, the county had given me a list of their foreclosures, and they were not
There's not a
a
lot.
lot.
Yeah,
And,
and my understanding is that the county handles foreclosures, it's a very different matter.
Yeah.
The county does not take ownership of the property, the county just basically does a tax sale, where somebody comes
Right.
in, gets their bill in taxes, and then they purchase it, and the title goes from prior owner to new owner. The city handles it differently, the city takes ownership of the property, it gets put into the city's name, city property. At that point, the city can decide what they want to do with that property.
And that's where land bank would be better for the city than it was, the county decided it. Because, well, because you get state money.
Correct. Yeah, the
to help
state,
subsidize the
the state has money parked where they will actually come in and help you do it. So it's not just shouldered completely on the local taxpayers.
So they come in with no ownership, no.
You know, they
don't-
just want to see better the community.
We can bring them, we can bring them.
Bring
down.
them.
Conditions that a bank has to kind of comply with.
Having said
Um,
that,
Probably, yeah.
sure.
That's the thing.
And
is
if the county, what happens is, if the county's gonna sell your property at a tax auction, you can move the money and you buy a house before the.
Oh, yeah, I mean, and, yeah, there, I mean, foreclosure law is very complicated. There are many, many steps to it. There are many opportunities for the property owner to pay. Come back in, get to development agreement. We've actually had a situation where after we went through the entire foreclosure process, followed all the legal requirements, foreclosed on the property, transferred the property into the city's name. The prior owner then declared bankruptcy after all of that happened, and because it was considered 60-day redemption period, there was a stay on the whole thing. So now we're in a situation where it's property technically owned by the city, but we don't really own it because the prior person owns it. So, and then COVID hit. What do you think about that? So.
What time of day do you think would be best for that type of emergency?
After hours, well, Adam's already told me there's two times in the day that he's good. It's before 10 o'clock or it's after 5. Yeah, but we would need to find a venue that would be large enough. I mean, is it something we could do at the high school? Yeah.
We could figure out and kind of pull something together and post,
Yeah.
Good audio visual, not
Exactly.
like that. Public hearing.
Oh, perfect. City Hall with an owl.
But I think it'd be great.
Imagine all those people.
And we could also invite, if it was a public meeting in a large enough location, I'd invite people from the county supervisor.
I think it would be a smart thing to do.
But I
Yeah.
think, as treasurer points out, you know, there weren't 2 or 3 properties in the town that got ultimately went to tax sale.
No, but I mean, when I think of, less than,
There's full-time person, the full-time lawyer works on
or we're just on our annual schedule.
So there's that.
it. Good idea.
Okay.
We're gonna try to coordinate with you and, Brian, Nate, where we could have a public,
For
educational session
planning,
about
HEDA, IDA all come together.
It's great,
Yeah.
it's great, great tool, and,
It is.
Charlie Toohey,
Yeah.
asked him to come as well, he's the president, he's the board chair for the Old Land Bank.
There's been,
He's done phenomenal.
there's people in the city council in Glens Falls as well.
Kingston just,
Kingston's done it, yeah. Like there've been like really positive local impacts that you can see from
and
what the
and
land
it
bank
takes a
do.
little bit of time to get one, because it has to be approved by the,
State.
legislature.
Correct.
Good.
All right, back to what our agenda is. I need any questions on the budget, which Heather, very beautiful, thank you. Oh, I know still, but, motion in a second?
Motion.
No, thank you. I can't.
Oh,
Oh, I don't want to second myself. Okay, then I'll second. All those in favor? Aye, okay. Any public comments or extra board comments for the finance committee meeting? All right, I need a motion and a second to resume. Thank you. Second, beautiful, all in favor. All right, now we're back to our regular scheduled program. God, these rules are fun, I tell you. Chris is happy that I'm running it by the book, I know. All right, next order of business. Now that we have our UTEP program in, and I just need to publicly acknowledge Jessica Gabriel for all of her extreme, incredible work on getting the varied schedule and everything done. Thank you, because I think like now we have the effective element of like a calculator that people can play with. And we have our UTEP updated and adopted. We have our application updated and adopted, and I would like to make a motion that we now officially lift our hotel moratorium so that we can use our application, our UTEP, and start evaluating all of the hotel applications in front of us in a new uniform manner going forward.
I so move.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Mike, will you please make sure you communicate that to all the developers this morning? Excellent.
you want to go back, I think you have to do the, budget, right, in this meeting now?
We just did.
You did that in the finance committee, now you need to do it.
Oh, yeah. that's
Sorry,
right.
just
I
the
thought-
formality.
all right. Well, now we'll go back.
Sorry,
All right.
I
That's,
don't want to lose track of that.
well,
that
do we want to
need-
do that, want to do that after we do the,
You can do that at the end, yeah, just, I just need it so that we can post it to the state.
any questions on the, while we're on the hotel moratorium, lifting and whatnot, any questions on the revised application that were there? The comments, I mean, are right in line, I think, with what we were expecting. Are those yours or Mike's in the track changes?
Mine.
Okay,
Right, I think going back to the application, I think keeping in mind sort of the objective of looking at and revising the application is to streamline it, right? And then incorporating, as you mentioned, the revised UTEP policy as well as the evaluation criteria, making sure that's all incorporated in there. And it gives applicants a format to sort of give you additional information.
And you're right with killing the old school paper copy thing too is sufficient. Like, let's do this electronically.
Yes.
I would prefer that it's all done. We decided it's going to be available via PDF and an alterable PDF, so it can be searchable by people, right? Perfect.
I think the other thing,
That's what I would like us to do. Yeah,
I
like
think that's gonna be,
you. Yeah, that, I mean, you employ that already for CPC.
can we accept electronic signature?
I don't know whether you have,
If we need a wet copy.
capability to do that. but
Well, I think we move towards it because, I think, Mark and I have even talked about this.
I'd rather just scan web signature for now, frankly.
So why don't we ask to do both? We'll DocuSign, and just for the time being, we want one wet copy for, actually two, this is the two wet copy, yeah, exactly.
And what signature is acceptable at this time, you have to have a lot of.
Right, and then I also want to add, if you institute those protocols, there's a cost that adds to your operational budget, right? Like, that's the idea, kind of going back to your question, which I thought was really good. Thank you.
Well, I think the more important thing is someone can sit down at their computer and type in the application.
Yes, exactly.
Right now, you Xerox a copy that's 7 iterations and it's not even straight on the page.
So the only other question that I had was the escrow element. And don't we already do that? Don't we put the application fee in escrow when they start?
You establish an escrow account, and this goes back to the objective of the application, is how much do you want to be able to sort of share with the developer or potential applicant to sort of explain to them the process, all of the requirements. So when we get like a smaller developer who might not be so savvy or so experienced, they're not caught off guard.
Right.
With, oh wait, now you need $25,000 in escrow? I wasn't expecting that, or whatever it may be. The title insurance, I don't want to, I think the whole idea is, let's be upfront and put everything out there.
Yeah.
How much do we want to put in an application versus having a separate document that would be sort of policy and protocol, right? Or something like that.
Yeah. It's like a Schedule B or.
Frequently asked question here.
And
Yeah, so let's create a separate.
Developers are feeling nickel and dime.
Yeah.
Because they didn't see it all up front.
So let's put it all in one schedule and leave and park all fees there. And maybe you break them up at times of process.
so maybe we want to pull out what I started to include in this version is sort of application overview and instructions. Maybe I break up application overview and keep the instructions in there, but have sort of a, I don't know, just one separate document that talks about the process, the fees, all of the requirements to be eligible in, during an application process as well as post-application if it's awarded. So I'll kind of put something, I'll pull some of this stuff out of here.
That I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
And then as far as, the escrow, do we just want the application fee in escrow
The application fee you are-
It's not.
regardless?
Yeah.
All right.
The application fee is a small, typically a small amount, just intended to process.
Yeah, it's a good faith payment.
Well, no, it's to cover your administrative costs of processing the application. So that's not trivial. I mean, there's anything, there's anything cost to that. So, you want to make sure that, if you have questions for me before we ever approve a project.
Yeah.
Right? You're gonna be asking me to review the application.
So are you paying $500?
No.
No,
Yeah, so.
I think my comment was put here just because I was thinking about all of the
Yeah.
financial requirements. It probably wouldn't fit under fees. It would be a separate section sort of saying escrow requirements and timing of when that's going to be applicable. And I can work with Chris on sort of. Mhm. Mhm. The title insurance, as we know, that was sort of a shock to. Yeah. Right.
we have to ensure that, an appraisal is going to be required, if they're aware of that, if there's going to be outside financial analysis on that.
Analysis.
So that, you know,
So those are kind of two buckets, right? So we have fees that the IDA collects for accepting looking and reviewing an application, approving an application, and then monitoring going forward. Then you have sort of the financial obligations that a developer is responsible for that don't come to the IDA, but that are part of the process. So there's sort of, I look at them as two separate buckets, but one that in the past in all the documents that are out there currently, we don't really touch on all the other financial
what
obligations.
the money is, the consultants on financial analysis, I think council, that money is put in escrow.
Right.
And paid by the IDA to the, it does come to us.
It's a pass, yes, it's a pass through, right? We don't collect a fee for doing a cost benefit analysis. We're not gonna, it's just a pass through.
We need to ensure the developer isn't paying directly because then they lose.
And then we'll never do that, right?
Lose
Right.
independent,
Right.
Hence the importance of the escrow account. Yep.
So our contract, the agency's contract for the information or the analysis.
Right, exactly. And I think what you might want to do is have an upfront, so you're gonna have your admin, right, whatever it is, reasonable, cost. And some kind of upfront escrow, which is honest for processing application, resolution.
I think it'll be fine.
I agree with you.
Then if the project is approved, then there's the escrow for, completion of the project documents, which are much more substantial.
So, and again, the reason that I pushed the finance thing is, does any of that impact what we should take into account or no, because it's just the estimation for the budget for next year?
And it doesn't, we use it for third-party payments, which aren't.
Oh, all right, never mind
Yeah,
then.
they just show up on the balance sheet, but
They're in and out, yeah, okay.
That's where cash is, really ours.
Right.
Liability. That's basically, our money, just holding it in order to pay bills that are associated with the
Got it.
project.
With a single project, right?
All right, so you'll start up the separate documents for us, we can look at those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing, thank you.
And while we're talking about fees, do you want to jump
Yeah.
to the fee part, or do you want to do that separate?
I think the draft the fee part, yeah,
Mhm.
and I mean, while we're talking on the annual fee, I mean, do we wanna raise it starting for 2023? I mean, should we do this on a financial year schedule thing? Do we wanna make it effective immediately? I mean,
We're talking about the application fee or the annual fee?
application fee.
Would the application be the same for every project?
Yes, because it's the same exact thing, same amount of work and it's only 500 right now.
It is. Do you want to look at, so there is a document that is in the packet that sort of looks at the direct fees that the IDA charges. And so you have 3 direct fees. The application fee, which is currently $500
Yeah.
per application. And that is, we would never even accept an application if it didn't have that fee attached to it. Because there are costs that the IDA undertakes by reviewing that.
Right.
Special meetings, yep, public hearing documentation, things like that. So that's,
I think we should take into consideration a smaller developer.
500.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say-
that was for an escrow
Oh, that's-
account.
Something else.
That's the-
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
if you're gonna do a $25 million project, then you can't talk to.
$500, yeah.
application, we don't wanna talk.
So why don't we put that on the dot, like, do you want to just get all of the schedules and the fees, including what the increase would look like, and let's vote on it at the next meeting then? I
It's
mean-
all in your packet.
Oh, it is here.
There's probably on the last page is a document that looks like this without all my notes. Yep, the fee assessment.
Here we go.
But there's certainly set the admin fee to include, if you were gonna try to allocate your cost for, having PPC as manager, they've got sort of 2 big functions. One is processing new projects.
Right.
And one is
Following up and making sure you understand,
monitoring,
yeah.
right? So you're charging a monitoring fee that should help you decide, what those charges are. But you're also doing initial processing. So if you think about, the cost that.
In
you're
between,
paying for those things, right? You should be charging an admin fee that's at least enough, I mean, an application fee that's at least
Well-
enough for them to process an application.
So I would say this is where it's like, do we up the application fee to $1,000, right? And then my question is, between the administrative transaction fee at closing, the annual admin fee, do we actually make that integrated and scaled? Where, where
Is there any way you can track it? Oh,
track what?
track costs.
No, it's just, we don't have that.
I thought maybe it's a way to actually track how much does it cost for us to track.
Well, we have a pretty good idea. We have a $60, if we take everybody who works here and we average it out with benefits and overhead.
To like an hourly,
$60 an hour.
yeah.
Okay. So it is a way, so you do.
Yeah,
have to-
and say each application takes 10 hours to process, right?
Okay.
That's how you get to the,
Okay, so
whatever.
you do have some type of.
See, what you're-
Yeah.
What you're looking at is, that's for the project administration. The work that, the $10,000 base fee that we get is primarily to cover the work that Lisa does on the minutes,
Correct.
scheduling meetings, publications of notices, my engagement and overseeing that for discussions. So, what we're looking at now is if it was a $2,500 annual fee that escalates 2% a year or something, that would give you 40 hours a year. Gives you 3.5 hours a month of overseeing projects that were already financed to close.
Two different things. You were asking about an application. You're talking about the admin fee.
And that's in all of the.
Yeah.
Use the formula, because if I was a developer, I would want to know, let's get this one. Why are you charging,
What is it going
Where is it?
toward? So-
Where's it coming from?
Yep, on that fee assessment, I sort of very high level outlined each one of your direct fees and what that cost covers. Very generically, and I think that's enough to get started, right? Because some projects may be a lot more complicated than others.
One of the
Or,
things that-
depending on this.
Application fee enough to cover our costs, like bringing it to approval by the board.
right?
That's just what we have to do to get them. So that's our risk reward on the 10% of the closing fee.
10%. In addition to their annual fee, that's 10%. So we pay the project, we get offers. CDC gets 10% of that one.
We have to take it for fun. So we're willing to do some of it on the come because we're going to we can help you get to a closing.
What are you recommending?
I think $1,000.
I agree. Yeah.
We don't, and then, but I do think,
And that doesn't hurt. There's no such thing as a small developer that can't come up with $1,000. It's
No.
not like,
No, I heard it say 5. So
oh, yeah, no,
That
no,
was
no,
the
no,
one.
no.
but now if you go to the annual fee, we have a $6 million assessment on the Popular Factory right now. 1% of that would be $6,000 a year. That to me seems a little excessive.
I mean, it's lucrative, but
1%.
Yeah, no. So that's, I think it's,
I think the biggest thing that what we hear is the idea that it's linked to assessed value. It's something that a developer from the initiation can't sort of lock in and say, here's going to be my fee across, because there's so much of an unknown about is their assessed value going to go up and how much and how do I budget for that? I think that's one of the big pieces.
So how do we do it? Is take a whatever number is a reasonable number to monitor right now, and then
right.
escalate
2% a year.
whatever the number is, or COLA is, which I think is a better way. to do it.
And that's where I was saying, I mean, like, how do you integrate it for scale? Because obviously, as they get closer to the completion of the project, there are more I's to dot and T's to cross.
Well, you have an upfront fee that should cover really your costs for managing the project. you complete. So, right?
I mean, that would be the
Upfront
ideal.
fee, And certainly that should help compensate you for that. So what monitoring really should be is what is the annual cost once the project is complete? And moving forward, you have to keep getting your, your annual reports so that you can make your reports repairs. You have to, in some projects that you are now undertaking, you're gonna have some monitoring of,
So
affordability requirements.
Right. So that's where I kind of like scenario 2.
Workforce education.
Correct. That we will figure out.
I think too, in addition to all of the work that's associated with that specific project, some of those funds that you collect in a fee need to cover your across the board operating costs, right? So you need to sort of factor that in as well.
So I kind of like scenario 2 for that reason.
Well, and in fairness, if I'm paying a $20,000 1% IDA fee for clothing, so some of that should be used for ongoing activities.
Well, yes, although I think that in terms of sustainability, thinking about that and supporting the cost of,
Third party.
the getting the project completion. You know, so the initial monitoring, construction period is more intensive, right? Than the ones in the maintenance stage. So, right.
Well, what have you seen? That's another idea.
It actually is really interesting. It ranges. I did do sort of a quick analysis looking at a handful of different IDAs, looking at larger sort of municipalities as well as sort of county level, which are broader. Applications fees ranged from $500. I think I even saw one that was $250 up to like $1,500 was the highest. So I think you guys going with 1,000 sort of you're in the middle there, right? Again, based on the size of the city, I think that's important to factor in. On the administrative fee due at closing, the 1% is pretty standard. They may have different fluctuations based on the size of the project. You know, where one community had, if it was a project that was less than 2.5 million, it was 1%, which $2.5 million project. I don't see how that would be financially viable. I don't know how many projects you'd actually get that were going to be that small. The cost to do business in an IDA is too high for them, the fees and all that. And then it kind of scaled up. If a project was greater than 2.5 million, their fee was 0.25% of the total project cost. So there is a little bit of they do base it on a project size and sort of scale it based on that. Some look at the bond amount too and sort of make a differentiation with the bond amount versus if it was a straight lease deal, and there's differences there. I personally think a straight fee, regardless of if there's a bond rate or a straight lease, I don't know the likelihood of, you know, somebody coming to the Hudson IDA for a bond deal, but traditionally you're going to stick with the straight lease. I would just have it the same fee.
Regardless with title insurance. Cool. So do we want to adopt Schedule 2 or Scenario 2?
So Scenario 2 looks at, there's a bunch of, I put together sort of 3 example projects.
And I like it based on the project costs versus the assessed value,
Oh,
right? I mean,
it keeps it simple.
it's more finite. To Heather's point, it's
And
less
standard.
of, there's one less step in it, right?
Right, and then I think too is where you, regardless of the assessed value, we still would have sort of the same amount of work, which would be more tied to the size of the project, right? How much benefit are they getting? How much, you know, what is the work that the CEDC IDA are going to have to go out and monitor?
Cool.
If that's irrelevant, that doesn't have anything to do with the assessed value.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think we still have quorum. Do we?
So what about the monitoring too? I think you want to look at the annual fee as well. So you're talking about $1,000 upfront, not upfront, but an application fee, and then a 1% at closing.
Project fee annually,
So yeah, so, yep.
right? So like Scenario 2, right? It's the application fee. In Scenario 2, the first box, application fee of $1,000.
Okay.
Administrative transaction fee is $50,000. The flat fee moving forward annually for the administrative monitoring fee is the $5,000.
So you're taking away the percentage.
But, I mean, I guess
Right, Jess, that's how you-
is that appropriate? When you want to do something on the basis of an escalator. Because just a flat percentage, is that really what you want?
But your flat percentage is not every year, right? That's one.
Oh, yeah, that's what I No,
That's what's just assumed here for the,
No, it's been charged $25,000 a
You know,
year.
it's talking about, in this scenario, it's 0.1%.
of the project cost, and I just multiplied it by 10 years. It's project cost.
Project cost versus the assessed value scenario.
Scenario one was looking at the assessed value and makes an assumption of an assessed value for project example A of $2 million. And then the scenario two assumes a flat fee of 0.1% on a project cost. So for this view, it is only, I just did it times 10 years, right? But to your point, Chris, is that you probably are going to want to consider or discuss, should there be an escalator there with that fee? Is our fees, you know, when we think about what you're charging them for, do the IDA's cost of doing that administrative and monitoring fee, is our cost going to increase? Likely, most likely.
Can I ask a question? The, project cost and assessed value. The assessed value is something that is public information, right?
Mhm.
Project cost, who determines that?
That's public
So the
information.
project cost is what
It's in the
It comes
application.
in
have to use the project cost that they come in with.
Exactly, the company,
Because
right?
we can't follow, they only spend half of that, because that's just not gonna be a way for us to monitor that.
So the company has
They
no
end up with
control over that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, this is what they come to you for assistance on, that's what the assistance number is based on, it in all the documents.
It's in the application that they certify and in your inducement agreement.
So if you have 0.01, it has to be a little much for a lot of projects, okay,
Yeah,
so.
that's what I'm saying. I'm thinking if you did for a project, you know,
Right, and that was the point of scenario C. Example C is a $25 million project. They'd be paying, if you use 0.1% of a project cost, they'd be paying $25,000 a year.
Wait,
I'm
Is
thinking.
that, again, that's really the point of sort of the scenarios, was to look at and see. You have to think about it in the size of the project, where you may,
1,500,
An escalator over a threshold.
Based on project cost.
but I'm thinking 5 million to 10 million, $1,500. 10 million to 20 million, $2,000, and above 20 million, $2,500 a year escalating in that COLA.
So you want to ping it to scale to fixed cost of project period.
I think, yeah. Otherwise,
Is $2,000 sufficient?
Well, he said 1,500.
1,500 for a small project.
Right.
is that enough?
That's what I mean, yeah.
Well,
I think-
but at the same time, now I'm a developer and $2,500 times 10 years is another 25 grand. If you present value that at 2%, it's 25 grand.
So here's the other thing, right?
At
Let's take a,
what point am I?
well, no, let's take a step back, right? We can do this for a year and then re-examine the fees next year. Right?
Just do it
So,
all at $2,500.
And we
Right.
start collecting data.
But when we close the deal in the lease, we're saying, this is the fee you're gonna have to pay for the next 10 years.
right, but
We're not
that's,
gonna change that next year.
no. So the I understand. The contract is a contract. So wet signature locks these people in, but if we can already see that we're starting to do more work than what we charge them, then you're right, then the next thing, and then this is just what the fee goes up to.
Yeah, so right now you're charging, what's
Nothing.
the maximum fee that you're, I know we are.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
0.1% of the assessed value.
Well, we
What do you
don't have, we don't have any projects online, but,
No, no,
the pocketbook factory is a $6 million assessed value. Kessler was 3,000,001.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't,
That's
maybe
the
10 million on the housing projects with Calvin. So 1%, that would be anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000.
You could do the 0.1% up to a maximum of, and that's where you could
And it's
cap it.
Enough to get get the reports that you need to get to incorporate their reports into Paris, follow up with them a couple of times to get the report between the two of you. That's really where this is happening right now. Is that enough?
Not to mention the fact that now we have all these criteria.
Right, that might not need to go into Paris, but it's something that now we're responsible for since we incorporated it into our evaluation.
$1,500.
Right, right.
$1,500 is our it's 25 hours a year. I mean, I think, and we're getting to the point where I'm working with the state now to get Paris automated. So you don't have to go through the nonsense, the way Courtney says to go through and, upload it.
So we can start thinking about reducing once Paris becomes.
Well, but you get questions, you get a municipality calls about the pilot.
Right. Bless you.
We had a county IDA project where the pilot, we didn't wait like you do to, make sure that the check clears and, they bounced their pilot check and we already paid the municipality. I mean, fortunately, we had the cash and we're gonna get the money, but there's day-to-day administrative nuances.
Right.
But again, I think that when you're getting, I don't think we should be charging people $10,000 a year.
Oh, I don't
No,
think any
no.
of us do that. I think it's just takes to find a balance.
But maybe-
At least to cover the actual.
But
Correct.
maybe the
No.
point is that $5 million project has the same amount of work as with 10 million. Maybe there's more with 20 million because you're monitoring more. But, you know, maybe it's somewhere between $2,500 and $5,000 on some scaled basis.
It's $15,000. So you've got 3 projects annually, right? It's 15,000 enough to cover that admin cost. And it's not
Well-
even a body.
Well, it's covering the 10 that you're paying us for that work now.
I will throw out, there is a good portion of IDAs that don't charge a monitoring fee. Just gonna throw it out there.
There are a lot of IDAs that,
Not an
So
annual
where,
fee.
where's the ability of their?
I think it comes in their administrative, their annual administrative fee,
You mean annual, too.
the 1%.
Oh,
The
well,
one-time administrative fee. It's referred to as the one time, it's your close at, do it closing,
You would force us to do.
which is a larger,
When we get, a, $25,000 fee on $25 million.
I will say though, the ones that I stated are very active IDAs. Because they have
money coming in.
income coming in
County, your county.
continually.
Yeah.
So that differentiates sort of you guys right now to them, but it is important to just be aware of.
But if we're gonna close on, yeah, maybe we have an obligation to use some of the funds that come in a lump sum to put a reserve account together to absorb some of the cost of the.
All right, so for next meeting then, right? Do you want to draw up then what the suggested scale would be to the? fixed
Based on
price?
everything we heard here, just come up with something for you to actually look at and say, yep,
Numbers that we're talking about, increase by COLA every year.
Correct.
So that even with
Right.
going up over time a little bit, but I'm just making up.
And we only,
We have a relatively low number here, but I mean,
Alright.
you know, I even, I kind of.
Yeah.
I think
I
that's
would say
high.
2,500 for everybody escalated at COLA.
Well, I
Because
thought you started at
15.
Yeah.
No, because then we're gonna end up with somebody in here that has a $25 million project and ask why they're, or somebody comes in with a $5 million, and why am I paying the same as the
Alright, so
other guy?
that's
So I
fine.
don't want to get into that
15,
contest.
20, 25.
So I think the step rate is the,
Do you want to look at, projects less than 10 million? We take in, you've seen SEC, no?
Well, and then the question.
And then projects greater than 10, there'd be sort of 2 rates.
just fixed.
So we're looking to.
Three levels.
And fix.
Yeah. With a COLA.
With the COLA, which goes up over time.
Okay.
Because the developer wants certainty, and if the
Right.
percentages of a number that can change every.
Right, and it's better to do it off the project cost than the assessed value.
Now, the question then will become, you closed on MacBook Factory and they're 1% of their appraisal. They're at $6,000,
Exactly, and that works.
It's okay.
they don't get modified by this.
No, exactly. No, that's to Chris's point. It's like those that have already passed and been done, this isn't a retroactive thing.
Could they come in and apply and pay a fee to have an amendment if they think that value,
No, I think like,
okay. I just am gonna assume that's what that's a question we're gonna get. is
It's fine
an
that
amendment.
anyone, like, take an example we had with the WIC. The WIC came in and, at a point, $5,000 more than that. And the county IDA didn't really have a fee structure to charge them 1%. So maybe if we did, whatever we got, we split the city. But you do have to look at what is the administrative fee when over a 10-year period, the developer comes in and wants a modification. And you saw different fees there?
I'm sorry, what I was talking. I just turned, if everyone's hot, it's 80 degrees in here. I just turned the fan, it was off. I was, all of a sudden everyone. Sorry, I missed your question because I was distracted with.
Comes in for a modification, probably you saw different levels of fees.
Yeah, some IDAs charge a fee for a modification.
People actually and cost across. People have lender issues.
Yeah.
Something, so.
and obviously it's subject to. a
It
vote.
wasn't,
Already paid $250,000.
Well, the thing is, they're not getting more. You know,
What if they're getting the money?
right, if they're getting, right, if they're getting money, that's it, if they're just modifying because they have a lender issue.
it was $500 was what the fees were. They were minimal.
It's funny to get all these things at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Perfect. So
Thank you.
we'll see that. Thank you. Yeah, we'll see that at the next meeting. All right, before we go, any questions from the board members on the proposed 2023 budget and treasurer's report? You know, separate committee meeting in the same way. So can I get a? Perfect. I've got a motion. I have a motion. Second, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, with that, I'd like to open up the floor to public comment. The only public?
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I hope it was entertaining.
It was very, very professional and informative. Yeah.
Put that on the record, please.
Yeah, play right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
What's your last name? Gabriel.
Any other-
I keep writing myself.
All right, any motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
Make that motion.
Second, all those in favor? Aye, and Chris Respond. Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for coming today, and see you at the next meeting.
Keep up the good work.